The United States does much better. Hey, we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have. And they have to treat us better. You know, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful, but it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state.
This may actually surprise some people, but a CTV News survey, which is looking at Canadians boycotting U.S. goods, services, and travel, have actually found that the number of people boycotting these things is actually increasing. They found out that in September 2025, the number of Canadians polled who would boycott U.S. goods, services, and also travel was 56%. They did the similar survey again in May 2026, and the number had increased by 10% to 66%. So that's a 10% increase of Canadians who are refusing to travel to the United States, choosing to buy products from other countries other than the United States, or not using US-based services.
Hopefully we can resolve some of the irritants and some of the other issues that are out there, and we can put together a great trade agreement. It would be good for the Canadian people, it would be good for the American people, and we can move forward. But we'll have to wait and see.
Hoekstra also stopped by News Talk 580 CFRA this morning and said there is still some work to do to get an agreement done, but trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. are still far apart. The ambassador adds he's optimistic trade issues can be fixed as both countries have very strong economies and have lots of resources.
We're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians.
And to be absolutely clear, Canada, like Mexico, Canada remains open to deeper integration, including options for Fortress North America in selected sectors. And to be clear, those offers are on the table. But if that route is not ultimately possible, we will invest heavily in new markets and products. We'll reward those who build, buy, and produce in Canada, and we will build new partnerships abroad.
Ford F-Series has been the single greatest selling truck in the United States of America for 45 years. It has a military-grade aluminum shell for a body, one of its great features. That's the good news. The bad news is you simply cannot make enough aluminum in the States for those trucks. You don't have the bauxite or the affordable electricity necessary to turn bauxite into alumina. We do. We have enormous surpluses of aluminum.
So Jim Beam, the liquor distiller, is shutting down operations in the United States for the whole year of 2026. And the reason why they're doing that is because their biggest export market is Canada, and Canada is refusing to buy American liquor in protest of the aggressive nature of the Trump administration. And it's had such a huge knock-on effect on Jim Beam sales that they are cancelling operations for the year of 2026. They will not be making any more liquor this year. Now, people are going to say, well, you know, that's very sad, and, you know, why are Canadians doing this? We're doing this because your president is a fascist pig, and he has to be stopped. And this is one way that we can do it to stop it.
We don't really understand what the dispute with Canada is about, because we've been a very good and friendly partner to the United States ever since the early 1800s, before we even formed as a confederation. What I would say to Americans, though, is you shouldn't have to worry about all of these countries if you're working collaboratively with Canada and you're trading freely with a separate country to the north. Then you will not be bound by what happens in these other less stable and arguably more hostile countries.
The U.S. ambassador to Canada says trade talks between Canada and the U.S. are nowhere close to reaching a deal.
In reality, they've never gotten back on track the same way that we've had progress with the Mexicans.
In an exclusive with CTV News, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra said the bones of a deal were in place back in October, but according to him, that was derailed by that Ontario anti-tariff ad. We are now 1 week away from the July 1st CUSMA review deadline.
And I was struck then, as I am again today, by the warmth of Canadians. I could not be more honored to be joining you in this historic hall, this Cathedral of Freedom. And we Americans can never say it enough. We could not ask for a better friend or ally than Canada. We could not.
We had, for almost half a century, we as Canada, a relationship with the Americans which were a steady process of deepening integration. And that process of deepening integration is over. We are in a position now where we cooperate when necessary, but not necessarily cooperate.
Family, Canada has long been viewed as America's closest friend, and the two nations share one of the largest trading relationships in the world, the longest peaceful international border, deep intelligence cooperation, and generations of cultural ties. Families live on both sides of the border, businesses depend on each other every single day, and millions of travelers come back or move back and forth every year. And that history makes any public disagreement feel especially significant. What has captured attention recently is not simply policy differences, but the tone of political discourse. So some voices aligned with the MAGA movement have used language that many Canadians interpreted as dismissive or disrespectful toward Canada and its leadership also, or even we can say its national priorities. And whether those comments were intended as political messaging for domestic audiences or as criticism of Canadian policies, they sparked discussion north of the border about how Canada should respond. And rather than engaging in equally heated rhetoric, many Canadian leaders and even commentators, as you have seen on social media, have emphasized something different. Protecting Canada's own interests while maintaining its dignity. That distinction is really important because distancing yourself from inflammatory political exchanges is not necessarily the same as ending a partnership. It can simply mean refusing to be drawn into escalating public disputes. And so this approach has resonated with many Canadians who believe that their country should project stability instead of outrage. And in today's highly connected media environment, every statement is amplified instantly. Political disagreements that once remained within diplomatic circles now spread across social media within minutes, creating the impression of constant conflict. And against that backdrop, Canada's measured tone has stood out. Mark Carney has often been associated with a style of leadership that emphasizes economic stability, institutional credibility, and predictable decision-making. And whether people agree with every position he takes or not, supporters argue that he projects calm during periods of uncertainty, and that image contrasts sharply with a more confrontational style that has really become common in parts of modern political debate. And so this difference in tone has fueled countless online conversations. Some commentators argue that Canada is wisely asserting its independence and even refusing to let another country's domestic political battles dictate its own choices. And others believe that close allies should avoid public distancing altogether and instead resolve disagreements privately. And these competing perspectives explain why the conversation has become so emotionally charged. It's also worth remembering that political movements are not monolithic. While headlines often speak broadly about MAGA supporters should hold a wide range of views, some prioritize stronger borders, others focus on economic policy, and others are mainly concerned with cultural issues. And reactions to Canada's posture have therefore varied, with some expressing frustration while others see diplomatic disagreements as a normal part of international relations.